Welcome back to We Are Liars podcast. Hopefully, your favorite Pretty Little Liars podcast. I'm Liz,
Michelle.
and we are welcoming YouTuber Lauren Daisy to the podcast. Thank you so much for joining us. We can't wait to talk to you about this crazy episode and like everything PLL. But this
Yes.
episode, I cannot. When you picked it, I was like, yes, this is
It's such
such
a
a
good
good
one,
one.
isn't it?
Such a good one. So obviously I did a little deep dive on Lauren Daisy and what makes Lauren Daisy. And your first public episode that I could find
Mhm.
was 5 years ago on The Perfectionist, which is the
Yes.
spin-off to Pretty Little Liars. So and then when I was kind of looking, seeing that your more popular videos are actually about the reboot, the original
hmm
Sin, and obviously the OG Pretty Little Liars. So I just want to obviously tell the listeners what your journey with this show is. Like what's your relationship with Pretty Little Liars?
Oh my gosh. It's like it's like star-crossed lovers kind of vibes, I feel. It's like, or high school sweethearts, but you just never really get over them. Like, PLL is that for me. Like,
Yes.
it is. I first saw it when I was like 13, I think, which is probably too young to watch it, but I was able to access US Netflix and I was there. I was locked in. um and yeah, so I've been like a fan for that's almost 12 years now. Um and it just, I don't know what it is about it. It is just so good. I think teen dramas like, oh well, I mean, you guys know, like Gossip Girl, Pretty Little Liars, One Tree Hill, all those kinds of early to mid 2000 shows, they just don't make TV like that anymore. They just really don't.
Not
And
never
that's
24
no.
episodes, none of that.
No.
Never
Like
again.
I've just heard my best friend Miranda, I basically get her to watch every show that I love watching so I can talk to her about it. So at the moment she's on Desperate Housewives and she was like, this is the greatest show I've ever seen. I was like, I know. They just don't make it like this anymore. It's just so good. When you know you've got, I think it's like Pretty Little Lies, like 160 episodes of TV.
Yep.
Like, how can you abandon that for like a 6 episode special? I can't get invested in that?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I grew up with these girls. Like, we're girly pops. We're like that? So it's hard to let go. And I feel like it's one of those shows, especially where you could watch it a million times and still find new things or different things to talk about because there is that mystery element, and each season kind of has a different sort of mystery and things. And because you've got your, like, depending on how you categorize the liars, either like the core four or also include Mona and Allison, like there's just so much to dive into there. So there's, I don't know, I feel like I could be 80 and still find things to talk about that I've never talked
Right.
about before.
So
It's just
true.
so good.
Yeah, there's and I'm sure obviously like I feel you are way more qualified to talk about Pretty Little Liars than I am. So there's like so many things that I had listened to, I'd watched, I should say, your 60 plot hole
Oh
and
yes.
this, and
Yeah.
when I tell you I was cooking and watching and I'm talking to my husband, I'm like, I don't remember anything she's talking about. In the I have no recollection of who this is and this is. So I'm like, it's gonna be a whole new journey for me. I mean, this will be really truly my second time fully watching the whole show.
Yeah.
But it is, you find nuance and all these things that happen every single time you watch it. Even though I watch it,
100%.
3 times to prepare for the episode, I'm like, oh, okay, you're finding that, and it's
Yeah,
just so
completely.
involved.
It is 100%.
Goodness
How
gracious.
many times have you seen the series, you think?
I actually couldn't even tell you. I've seen it so many times. I think especially season one and two are like, they're my those are my babies. I love
Mm.
season one and two. Um, I don't know if even you guys have noticed going from one and two to season three. It feels like there's quite a big, it's one of the biggest shifts, I think, in the show between season two and season three. There's kind of like arcs of it, like season one and two, probably like three, four, and five, and then six and seven are kind of like different
Mm-hmm.
arcs.
Yeah.
And so I think one and two definitely holds a special place in my heart. I don't know if you guys are finding that, and then especially because you're like watching it for the first time, if you're just as invested with season three or if you're like, oh, I don't know if this is as good as 1 and 2.
That's a good
There's
question.
different kind of things to love about each one. So I think 1 and 2, I don't even know how many times I've seen. And then 3, 4, and 5, I've seen a good amount of times as well. And then I say 6 and 7, I probably rewatched the least.
Yeah.
But for the book that I'm writing at the minute, I have had to go through and watch every single episode, kind of like you guys are doing with your rewatch, where you watch it and like a couple times to kind of get everything that you need to get out of it. So I truly thought at the end of that I would be burnt out, but I still am like, I'm still ready to talk about it. I
Oh,
just love it.
Wow.
I
That's
love
great. That's
that.
so great.
Yeah. Okay. So I feel you said 1 and 2 were like your favorite seasons.
Yeah.
Our listeners also want to know who your favorite liar is. And obviously that could change during each rewatch. It could change during each season. So I guess in those first 2 seasons, who would be your favorite? I think I know the answer to this, but I'll let you tell them.
I feel like this is such a hot take. It's a hot take. I don't know if to be fair, I don't know if where you're at in the show at the minute it's going to be that much of a hot take. So I'm not going to like it's not a spoiler or anything. If you kind of know the show, you know Aria isn't everyone's favorite, but she is my favorite.
Yes.
I I love her. I don't know if it's because she's played by Lucy Hale and that just gives me some kind of bias because I
Yes.
just love her so much. Like a Cinderella story, sorority wars, like privileged. Like she has just done she did so many iconic things before Pretty Little Liars and around those first 2 seasons, but also still now, like she's just she's a rom-com queen and I love a rom-com.
Yeah.
So I feel like from when I first started watching it, and to now, she's always kind of been my favorite. I think in terms of ranking, like the 4 or 6 girls, those kind of like are interchangeable throughout the seasons. But I feel like I just have this like connection to I just can't let go. And
Yeah.
I know how much like all the criticism she gets, and I totally get it, and I will do the same thing. But there's just something about her where I'm like her style, and I mean I'm a vegan and she's a vegetarian, and like there's just all these like different things that I just think I don't know, in some ways she kind of is the vibe of Pretty Little Liars, especially in those first 2 seasons.
Yeah.
Um, but I get the criticism there. And it is hard to pick because I think what's so great about Pretty Little Liars is everyone will watch it and identify with somebody else because you have, yeah, Aria's more eclectic and she also has her kind of family dynamic is a big part of the show. But then you have Spencer, who's a perfectionist and more into like academics and, also struggles with addiction and things like that. And then you also have like Hannah, who's like the fashionista, who's also really fun, like it girl. But then, like a lot of young girls, like myself included, she struggles in that first season a lot with eating disorder and body image. And you have Emily, and she's athletic, and she also has her journey in the first season with coming out to her parents and everything. So I think there's kind of something to find in everyone. And yeah, I don't know, it makes it hard to kind of choose a favorite, but you do kind of tend to have one you just lean more towards because you just relate to them in a different kind of way.
Absolutely.
Do you think each girl has a season?
Oh,
We're only
they,
3 seasons in so
yeah,
far, and that's all I've seen. But I'm curious if you look at the series as a whole,
yeah.
does a girl shine each season?
I think probably yes.
Mm.
This is something I'm so like fascinated with in teen shows because I feel like it happens all the time where you start off and you have a character who's kind of intended to be the main character. So I'd say for Pretty Little Lies that probably is Aria because Lucy Hale was the most famous going in, probably outside of like Janelle Parrish maybe because she'd done the Bratz movie, but she was like kind of the big name. She was the first person that they cast. They kind of knew they wanted her. They went for her and offered her the role. And she was then in a few of the auditions and stuff when the other girls were being cast. And they kind of based the group around her in a way. But I think as the show goes on and in season 3, you kind of start to see that shift. I don't know if you guys like you've noticed it already, but there seems to be a bit more of a shift towards Spencer.
Yeah.
Because Troyan is just such a powerhouse. I think she's just such an incredible actress. So there starts to be a bit more of a shift towards her in the later seasons. And I think you have the same with Gossip Girl, where Serena was, the character, and Blake was the big get, but then they kind of find what they have and who the audience likes, and then you see the shift to like Blair is more the main character in those later seasons, and you have like in Montreal you have Peyton, and then that kind of shifts more to like Brooke, and you have these characters that they never really know how they're going to be like perceived until the show's really on, and then you see that shift. I think Desperate Housewives, you've got like Susan, but then it shifts to Brie, or even like Friends, it's more like Rachel, but then it shifts more to Monica. And I think that's so like interesting in shows when you never know who's going to shine. And I think with Pretty Little Liars, it definitely was more an Aria to Spencer shift. And I think there are each girl has like more of a certain like high point, like some parts, like I think it was season 2, there's a lot of focus on Emily kind of in that first half. But I think probably, Aria and Spencer kind of are more at the top. And then it kind of, Aria, Hannah and Emily, I don't know, it always felt like they ranked a little bit lower, which I think is a shame in some aspects. But I don't know. I don't know if each girl kind of has a season. It's more like Aria for the first 2 and then Spencer for the rest is kind of how it feels in my mind.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with that. I feel like going in, you automatically think that the show will be surrounded more, I guess, around Aria. But very quickly I feel the storylines are just way more interesting that surround Spencer. So therefore, maybe the audience and the writers and directors saw, okay, the audience actually likes to watch Spencer, so therefore we're going to make the shift over to her. And in my opinion, like her entire character is the most interesting on the show.
100%.
From watch then to even just watching now. Obviously, Michelle and I really don't gravitate towards Aria. The last couple of weeks,
she's having a better season. She's having a better season. It was really.
Oh gosh, she really does some stuff that's just.
Well, and also,
what are you doing?
Yeah, and it's like we always say we like Aria without Ezra. So
100%. This is something like this is the hill I feel like every Pretty Little Liars fan dies on, but it's just. I think that's why the first 2 seasons, like especially season 1, is so great for her, because you're still seeing her as a character, whereas and like even Troyan and the actors have said they're kind of the big love story of the show, which is a shame, because I think them being together really takes away from what her character could have been on its own. And I don't know. I know you don't do obviously spoilers for the show. How do you feel about the books?
We read the first 4 books.
Okay.
This past summer. So we still didn't like Ezra in the books.
He got arrested. Did he get arrested? Is that where we left off?
Yeah, but then he was let go, remember?
Yes.
And now he's gone. He went to go spend time with his his parents, because the school why he left because of whatever. I don't know if he comes back.
Yeah.
So in the book, Sean is Aria's boyfriend, which is completely really weird shift, isn't it, from like the show?
Yeah.
And so he then reports Ezra, and I think it's like not enough evidence, or she doesn't press charges or something, and he ends up getting fired.
Yeah,
that's what it was.
I was like, okay. Like when I was reading the books, I was like, this was right here, and the show did not follow it at all. And I think it's just it's a whole huge conversation into the world of like inappropriate relationships in teen TV, and there are unfortunately quite a few of them, like again, Gossip Girl. But I think the fact that they make it this heroic big love story is such a shame, and the fact that Aria's character is forever tied to his character again is a shame. I feel like she is less involved in the group sometimes because she's with Ezra, and then it's like you see a lot of scenes that are just Spencer, Emily, Hannah, they're kind of solving things and doing stuff, and Aria's like, oh, I've got to go do this, or I'm with Ezra, or and obviously at this point you guys have seen when they tell Aria's parents about Ezra, and that to me was always so crazy. I think it was just so I don't know if you actually watched it when it was like airing, or did you kind of?
I did. I did.
Yeah, it was
I'm an old
just
fart.
yeah, it was just bizarre. Like when you think now to how people view that, it was just not like that at the time. And they won, oh my gosh, like for the Teen Choice Awards, they won everything. Are like Lucy Hale as Aria and Ian Harding as Ezra. Every single time they were nominated, they won everything. Like they were just the face of the show. People just loved their relationship so much, and Byron and Ella became these like villains. And when you watch back now, you're like, of course they were outraged. Why would they not be outraged? This is the most ridiculous thing ever.
Yeah.
And yeah, and then you start to, it's just there's some crazy things that you think, how did they continue with this? And it's just it is a shame because I think, yeah, like you said, that is at the detriment to Aria's character, because when she is separate from him and just with the girls, or is exploring more like solo storylines, I think that's where she kind of really shines.
Yeah.
And I think it's a shame that you didn't get to see that more.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah.
Absolutely agree.
Yeah.
Oh, well, we'll talk about Aria in a minute, but before that, I just have all these like follow-up questions for you, Lauren, because I feel like I could ask you these things. So Michelle and I did not watch the webisodes, the Pretty Dirty Secrets. She actually doesn't even know that they exist.
I don't. I have no idea what this is. So
so this is actually this, I don't know, was it 8 episode, something like this?
I think it was 8. Yeah.
That was that premiered at the time on ABC Family's website. It was kind of just like a little webisode series. None of the main liars were in it, but it was a spin-off of kind of a spooky season to get everyone prepared for the Halloween episode. But in this episode, in these webisodes, I don't know if in your opinion, A, do you think we should watch them? And B, um, obviously I don't care if you spoil this, but I'm so curious about the looks between Jason and Lucas on the train that I have a feeling that has something to do with these webisodes. Is that correct in my
It
feeling?
actually doesn't, which is
No.
so frustrating. I know. I like Lucas
I have no idea what's happening.
Lucas and Jason are both in the webisodes, but they're in different episodes.
Okay.
I honestly, I don't think it is worth watching. I
Okay.
think maybe at the time, it's what Pretty Little Lies is one of those shows where that you think things mean something and things make sense in that moment, and then with the reveals you get seasons later, you're like, actually that now makes zero sense. Why? Like there's a lot of, it seems like the writers forgot about things they did.
Well, aka November, which we'll get into in just a second. So
exactly. And so I think the webisodes is 100% one of those. The one that's probably the most worth it, I can't remember any of the names, but there is one with Jason and Cece.
okay.
So that's like the only time I think they ever really interacted like on screen. So that one's like kind of interesting.
Okay.
But outside of that, you don't really gain any new information. It was the first time that oh wait. There was a new character that was introduced. I feel like this isn't a spoiler, but Shauna.
Yeah, we'll meet her next week.
Yes, yeah.
In next week's episode.
So they actually introduced her for the first time in the webisodes before she actually came onto the show. So like that stuff would have been interesting, and you got like a sneak peek at the liars' costumes for the Halloween train, stuff like that. But I feel like it's not that worth it. I think I think it's an interesting part of like the PLL history, because Pretty Little Liars was like a proper pioneer in terms of social media and using the internet to boost, the ratings of your show and for fans to be able to interact. And I think things that were kind of big at that time, which is kind of crazy to say, like, obviously iCarly had happened and things like that, that webisodes and, little things like that were really big. So it was just kind of a thing to tide them over. And yeah, I don't think you need to watch it.
Okay. I trust your opinion.
Yeah.
I just was curious if there was anything that we were like missing that was vital to the progression of the story, in which I obviously felt in my
No.
heart of hearts there wasn't going to be, because
Yeah.
most people, I'm sure, at the time didn't log on to watch this, what, unless I'm, just assuming, but I assume that people didn't tune in. It's
Yeah. And
just
I think
my
as well,
thought.
if you were international, I don't even think you could watch them like
Oh,
on
true.
ABC's website anyway. So I don't even know how many people actually saw them. Like I did a video where I went through them all and said, what happens in them and if it links back to future things and everything. And a lot of the comments were like, I had no idea this existed.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I almost
Wow.
did watch the
Yeah.
video, and then I was like, well, maybe I should ask her if it's worth it first, and then I'll watch it to just sum up the episodes to see
Yeah.
what happens in it. So
Yeah.
I thank you for your opinion. And lastly, we got to talk about November, because this is
Oh
something
my gosh.
that during the time back in the day in 2012 when I watched this live, we didn't actually realize it was happening until it just continued to still happen.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
so I, of course, I watched your video about the timeline, and per your timeline, since Halloween was 313, episode 314, you had counted per like outfits and the way the characters were talking about the day, that it was 3 days during that time. So
Mhm.
figure November 1st through 3rd. And then in last week's episode, you counted another 2 days. So figure the 4th and 5th of November. um, so in this episode, we are around the 5th of November. And you had confirmed, because Caleb and Hannah had solidified their relations on November 5th, because Caleb put in his password the exclamation mark, which we remember,
Mm-hmm.
Michelle.
Yes.
And Toby and Spencer actually did kiss the next morning from the hotel. So their anniversary technically is November 6th. So we're
Mhm.
only in November 6th.
Yes.
But our listener Kat had messaged me and stated that she feels this is day 18 into November. So I don't know where she's getting this number from. So Kat, please let me know. But yeah, so thank you for doing your due diligence and trying to figure out the timeline with this November, because
It's a
you're the only opinion
nightmare.
I'm trusting
It's
now.
a
It's
nightmare.
honestly this is the thing is like in terms of the numbers and what they say about the anniversary, that makes sense. But what doesn't make sense is that in 3x14, Caleb actually says it's been weeks
It's
since
been
the
weeks.
Halloween train.
Like 3 weeks. Doesn't he say it's been 3
He
weeks?
it says it's been weeks.
He says
So
it's been
as an
weeks.
audience member, you're like, okay, so weeks, so 2, 3
Yeah. So
weeks. S
November
plural.
18th. It does,
Right.
kind of make
It
sense.
kind
But
of
then
makes
Yes.
sense.
so it's one of those. It's such a
Yes.
nightmare.
Right. So what
And
they were
yeah.
saying in the show, we could believe that it's November 18th, let's just say, but when you count it, and Michelle doesn't know how many episodes we go into November, so I'm not going to tell her that.
No.
But our listeners were like, don't give that to her. She will
Yeah.
never watch the show ever again.
Oh my God.
But but if you were to count it, it's actually only been 6 days.
Yes. It's
So this is fun
insane.
stuff.
Do we
You'll
know
have
why they did
to
this?
I
Is
think they
there
just did not keep track. They didn't have Lauren's book to keep track.
the Bible?
The
there's
Bible.
a
Yes.
specific, again, no spoilers, but there's a specific episode that they wanted to do that then solidifies the timeline.
Mm.
And because of where they put it, it then means that it all took place in 1 month. And
No, that's crazy.
it's so insane. Like,
That's so
I
stupid.
need you to, when you get to that episode, you'll have to say, this is
Here
now
it is.
where November is over. And you'll be like, but
This is
that was
ridiculous.
so long ago.
Yep.
Wow.
I
Okay.
Honestly.
I can and I can't wait.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
an absolute like Rosewood is in some kind of alternate universe,
It absolutely
which
is.
is so funny because are you guys Riverdale fans? Did you watch Riverdale?
Oh, Michelle and we tortured ourselves for
Yeah.
years watching that show. Yeah.
Yeah.
We never finished it, but then we went
Yeah.
back and we watched the finale of season 5 and like the finale of whatever the last season was, and
Crazy.
it was like nothing had ever changed.
Crazy.
But also
We
so
watched it,
much
but
weirdness
so much had
happened.
changed.
Yeah.
It was crazy.
Superpowers, all that stuff.
Yes.
And the creator of Riverdale actually did the Original Sin spin-off, and
Yes.
he planted some Easter eggs in the spin-off that essentially connects Pretty Little Liars to Riverdale. So in
Wow.
Rosewood, obviously that's a whole mess in itself, with time being all kinds of confusing, but apparently in because I think Riverdale's technically set in like the state of New York, they're also superheroes and time travel, and all the wonderful world of Riverdale is also connected to the ridiculousness of Pretty Little Liars. So, you know, maybe it does make sense somehow,
You're
somewhere.
right. Maybe
You just
the
have to
show was
accept it.
actually just Riverdale before Riverdale was Riverdale.
Riverdale, I loved that show. Like, I hardcore loved that show. And it was like the first 2 seasons. It was so well
good.
done.
Yeah.
It just went so off the rails.
Yeah.
But are you guys planning on also looking at The Perfectionist, Ravenswood, Original Sin, and Summer School? Or are you just calling it quits at the OG show?
Once Michelle knows nothing, and I would love to get our listeners' opinions as to when we reach Ravenswood, which is like around 5, right? Ish, 4 or 5. Something like that.
Yeah, it's halfway through season 4.
Okay, so we're nearing it, sort of.
Yeah.
I would love to get their opinions as if they would like that just as a separate podcast, or do they want us to incorporate it into this podcast somehow? So we'll see, because it, as Michelle will see, it's during the time we're also watching Pretty Little Liars that this show is also simultaneously happening. So
Yes.
I don't want us to like not acknowledge it, but then again, we could just not acknowledge it at all, and we could still have the same show. So I don't know.
That's the thing.
What we should do.
you can just completely ignore it, because it is. They did a pretty good job of detaching it from the original show.
Yes.
So you're not gonna really miss much.
Yeah.
There's maybe, honestly, you could probably just watch maybe like the first episode and the finale.
Yeah.
Because it is, it's good. I actually really liked it. I feel like it got a lot of slating at the time. And obviously it didn't get renewed. It only had its 1 season.
Yeah.
But I actually quite enjoy it. I'd never seen it until last year when I did my recap of it. I'd never watched it before because I'd only heard that it was bad. But I actually really liked it.
Yeah. Well,
I actually did not think it was that bad.
Yeah,
so
we might like it.
I think
I've seen
it's kind of fun.
Yeah,
and
it's definitely fun.
It is. It's just a bit of fun. It's a bit ridiculous. But there's a lot of fun, famous faces in it, actually.
Yeah.
There's Brett Dyer is in it from Jane the Virgin.
Yeah, I love him.
Haley Lou Richardson, that's actually where they met, was on Ravenswood.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
And then they broke up, like I think like 8 years later or something. And there's who else? Luke Benwood is in it as well. Brittany Oldford, Merritt Patterson. If you watch like Hallmark and Lifetime and whatever, she's all over those. So there's like, when I was watching, I was like, these people are like famous.
Yeah.
But this was what they did before they were famous. So
yeah,
it's kind of fun for things like that, and it is absolutely ridiculous. And it's so funny because the character who leaves for it, you think, how did they not say about this to anyone? Because it's just insane. How did they not tell anyone that this was happening?
Yes. And we never they never mention it to anyone else when they come back.
No.
It was like it never had happened.
It's so funny.
Crazy.
So yeah, when you actually watch it, you're even more like, how did they never say anything to anyone about what was happening here? And you do get one of the liars is in the finale. So that's kind of like fun, because then there is a bit of tie-in. So yeah, I'd say you could probably watch like, it's only 10 episodes to be fair, so you could watch the whole thing and maybe do like, I don't know, like a bonus just or something, recap of them or something. But it's just a bit of fun, you know.
Yeah,
especially if you like the character. who it's based on, then
yes.
it's like worth watching just for them.
And I think she will want to.
Yeah.
And that's that. That's all I'm gonna say.
Yeah.
Okay.
No spoilers. No
Okay.
spoilers.
All
Okay.
right. So the episode we are actually talking about today is episode 16 of season 3, which is titled Misery Loves Company. It aired January 22nd, 2013, written by I. Marlene King and Janelle Lennon, and directed by I. Marlene King. Do you understand the Stephen King Kathy Bates reference now, or no? Still not.
Me?
Yeah.
No.
Oh,
I
so
have
the movie
no.
Misery? No? The
No.
Kathy Bates where she literally okay. Well,
Nope.
anyway, it's based off a
Nope.
Stephen King novel in which a writer goes missing and she kind of like holds him up at her house and she's taking care of him, but she's actually not taking care of him. She's
It's
trying
such
to like
a good movie.
it's so good. Kathy Bates is chef's kiss. She's so
she
good.
is. She really is.
So definitely a one that you and Seth should check out at some point.
Yeah.
So we also have this. Unfortunately, Michelle is the last we will see of Amanda Schull on Pretty Little Liars.
Are you guys Suits fans?
No, well, I was for a while, and then I kind of just stopped
Yeah.
watching it. But
Yeah.
she just obviously just makes her like rounds in these teen dramas of being dangerous
Mhm.
person. It's so
It's
crazy.
so funny.
But yeah, maybe Mike said something like, "Well, maybe the Tree Hill police will be better at catching her than the Rosewood police."
Oh my gosh, that's it?
Yeah, that's it.
That's it.
How is
I
that
know.
it? I don't what?
It's crazy, isn't it? There's so many characters like this where you just never see them again. It's like in Gossip Girl where they oh my god, I can't even remember his name now. This is how much like they don't speak about him. But Rufus.
Scott.
Oh,
Scott.
Yes,
Oh,
Rufus and Lily's
Never forget Scott.
disappeared. Just gone. Just
And we
never ever
never
mentioned again.
referenced him one time after that. And I was like, "Do you
It's
guys ever
so
having
funny.
Thanksgiving? Do you not invite your children?"
Oh, we never forget Scott.
Never forget Scott. I mean,
Insane.
his character
Insane.
was wah, wah, but we never
Yeah.
forget him.
We never forget
No.
him, and we never forget Royal Scott, Nathan Scott's father.
No, Dan Scott's father.
Dan Scott, I'm sorry.
Dan and Keith's father,
Yeah.
Royal.
Nate's grandfather.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like their parents just like disappear. They come in for like one episode and then they
Yep.
It's
disappear.
crazy.
Where's
It's like
Royal?
surely these are like big people in your life. No, your son
You
that you
think?
found out you had and were so desperate to find, and then
Exactly.
suddenly you don't care anymore. But
Yeah.
Yes.
Pretty Little Lies is like the same. You have people that come in for just maybe a total like 5 episodes, and you're like, oh, so that was just it.
Yep.
You were such a
So-
huge part of this story arc, and now you're just poof.
Right.
That's
You
Wow.
almost like don't want to invest your time and efforts into any characters that are coming on from now on.
Yeah.
Because- and I don't mean not obviously it's like not a spoiler. Like we have the four main liars and whatever's happening in their lives. I feel like as long as they're there, you don't really need to focus on anyone else because
Absolutely
everyone who's
not.
coming in is gonna be gone. Like it's
Yeah.
crazy. They're
Yeah.
just-
No
and
one
that's
sticks
very-
around.
I don't know if that's a CW. I mean, obviously this isn't CW, but that's just like a thing that we did on shows that you had so many episodes was just bring in these characters, give them like a 2 to 3, maybe even a 10 episode arc, and then you never hear about them ever again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's a shame too, because some of them are played by like really fun actors.
Right.
And then you just never see them again. I feel
Never
like
again.
Meredith had so much more potential, especially because like in the book, she's like
yeah.
a bigger character.
Definitely.
Like her and Byron are like this in the books.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But yeah, after this,
I
she's
know.
just gone.
Wow.
And it's so funny too, because have you ever seen Sorority Wars?
No.
No.
Oh my god, it's
Is
fabulous.
that the one
So-
that you mentioned with Lucy? Isn't that
Yes.
one? Oh.
So that movie came out just before Pretty Little Lies, like 2009. And Amanda is in that as well. And she's Lucy's rival in that. They both go to the same uni.
Oh, that's
And
so
they're
funny.
like little rivals before she then went on to play like almost her stepmom
Right.
in
She's
Pretty
supposed to
Little
be like
Lies.
10 years
Wow.
older than her. or whatever.
Yeah. And then you also have like Amanda obviously was in Suits, and then with Patrick, who's married to Troyan.
Right.
And
True.
Yeah.
so like, yeah, she's such a good actress, and it's so funny. She has all these like connections, but then they just don't use her character after this. I think it's such a shame.
Yeah. In next week's episode, they do mention like it's not like she's gone. They do mention her again. It's not like they just completely forgot about this situation.
Okay, that's
But
good.
we don't actually see her ever again.
No.
That's it for her.
So yeah, but
Yeah.
sorority wars, that's one of my like classic, like when the girls are over. It's
Mhm.
not a great movie. It was direct to DVD, but there's something about it that is it's just good, you know?
I get it. That's like
I
a
get it.
sleepover. That movie is
100%.
awful, but it's the
It's
best.
awful. It's so awful.
You just
That
like watch
movie.
it at 2 a.m. You're like, it's great.
I know, but it's
Oh,
like again, how were they expecting us to ship Sean Faris with Alexa? Like what?
I
She's like
know.
13
She's
and
so
he's like
young. She's a
17.
baby. Yeah. All right. So the summary for the episode: Aria is down for the count when sidelined by the flu. So Hannah and Emily are on their own to follow up on a new clue. That rhymed. Surprisingly, Meredith steps up to help take care of Aria while her father is away. But when it starts to look like Meredith may have ulterior motives by nursing Aria back to health, Hannah and Emily turn their attention towards saving their friend. Meanwhile, Spencer takes a break from sleuthing to surprise Tobe Nobe from their anniversary. Oi. Oi.
Oh
Oi,
my
oi, oi.
gosh. Wow, wow, wow.
Yeah. We'll start with Arya's scenario because honestly, when you write it out, it's not that much because it's just like a few scenes of her actually
It
just being
is, yeah.
sick. But we pick up basically right where we left off last week, where Aria is sick. She's sick as a dog with the flu, in which fans had heard that Lucy was actually sick. Did you hear that at any point in your like
No.
research? I had read that maybe on Wiki or something like that, that people are like, oh, Lucy was sick. And I'm like, well, at the end of the episode, she's lying flat on the ground in the basement. So I hope she wasn't sick.
Oh my
Who
gosh.
knows? But she's not able to go to school or really do anything. So Meredith, her step mommy, basically, is trying to nurse her back to health with her power potion tea. Our listeners want to know what our remedy or food that we like to eat when we're sick. I guess it depends on what kind of sick, but I'm assuming like your common cold.
Ramen.
That's
Mm.
such a good one.
Yeah.
Vegetable ramen, assuming.
Yeah, I'm a vegetarian, and so where it's hard to find like the good vegan broth ramen by us,
Mm-hmm.
but we found a couple of good
Oh,
spots.
we did. We found the really good
So,
spot.
yeah, that's the go-to because I had a cold
Yeah,
last week
last week.
and I had ramen twice. So,
Oh, it's so
yeah,
comforting.
it is. Yeah.
I
What do you
feel
like
like
to watch? Do you
that's
like to
such a
watch
good one.
TV or read magazines like what Hannah was doing?
The trash.
Yeah, the
The
trash
trash like
magazine.
magazines, I feel like that's so 2000s,
I
like the
know.
magazines
I
and how
know.
she brought her like Saved by the Bell and like
Yes, I love it.
Right.
I feel like
Nowadays it's binge watching Netflix or
it
Hulu or
is,
whatever.
yeah.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
actually my go-to when I'm like not feeling well is like stuff I loved as a kid
Ooh,
because it
yeah.
just like makes me feel like that, like like the animated like Bratz movies, like Bratz
Uh-huh.
Rock Angels, like
Uh-huh.
that'll be me. I'll be there and then like when I was a kid, my mom would let me have my duvet like on the couch, like if I was sick. So I'd do that, bring my duvet, like put on a Bratz movie, and then if I've got like a sore throat, I feel like Ben and Jerry's is the go-to. I don't know if it's like because it's cold or the sugar or whatever it
Mm.
is, but that just always
Yeah.
that always does it for me.
I used to beg my mom to get the rocket ship ice pops, the red, white, and blue that are
Yes.
shaped.
Yeah.
I loved, and even as an adult, I do like look for like an ice pop situation when you have a sore throat or when you're
Yeah.
sick. So yeah, that's like my thing would be like ice pops. I always just want like carbs. Just give me
Oh
toast.
yeah.
Give me
Yeah.
bread and
Bagel.
butter, a
Yes.
bagel.
Absolutely.
Yes.
I want all the
Comforting.
yeah, all the carb stuff. But throughout the day, Arya is in and out of consciousness. She keeps like looking like she's gonna be out of out of it, but then she falls back asleep, and it's just really crazy. Like the more she drinks the tea, the more she's out of it. And then you don't really think. Did you think it was suspicious at this point, Michelle? Like in the beginning of it, she was just giving her the tea, but then we see her go to school where she tells Ella that she's getting better. So like
Yeah,
right
no, when she
there.
was giving her the tea, that's when I texted you and I was like, "Oh my God, Meredith is drugging Aria right now."
Yeah. Is she
That is exactly
drugging
what
her?
happening. Is this is what happening. Yeah. And
Yeah. And then she tells Ella, Arya's doing
yeah.
better. And then
Yeah.
she has her phone. Like she's clearly up to something, up to no good, and the tea has been drugging her. So throughout the day, we see Meredith searching the entire house. She's trying to find these pages from Allison's diary, but she's not really having any luck. And then Aria goes into a stupor again, and she's visited by none other than Allison De Laurentiis. Because, you know, when you are in a dream state in Rosewood, you get a visit by Allison.
You do.
And yeah, I think this was her first time to get a visit from Allie. And during this time, she goes in Aria's closet and she takes the doll that Aria has, we later find out, stuffed the pages in there. And she tells her that she was never going to tell Ella about it. She just needed the cash. And she mentions how she sees everything now and she knows who A is, and the girls know who A is. And she's surprised that Spencer hasn't figured it out yet.
Mm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Good times. And she also says that, you know, she says, "Do you know why I picked you?" And Aria's like, "No, please tell me. Tell me, why did you pick me?" And she also says, "Do I look dead to you?" I mean, this is just like a whole. This is the more we progress in the show, the more these like dream sequences really become lifelike.
Yeah.
And Aria's is like, I think she's the last liar to get this visit from her. And so this one seems more like this is possible. And she leaves the doll by the front door, by Aria's bedroom door. And then when Aria wakes up, the doll is still there. So it's just real creepy. Kat, our listener, says, "Is there anything that the writers are telling us by the order that the liars see Allison? First Hannah, then Emily, Spencer, and now Aria last."
Wow, it's a
Ooh,
great
Aria was her
question.
That's
least
such a good
favorite.
question. I don't know. There was what I always like love about those sequences is the lack of knowing what's real and what's not.
Yeah.
Because especially with like like they're always in scenarios where it's like Hannah was obviously in the hospital, like she was on a lot of pain meds. Emily almost died from like
The carbon
the car
monoxide. Right? Yeah,
fumes.
yeah, 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 yeah.
So yeah, that always like leaves you with that, oh, was that real? But then it's always like she gets up straight away and goes to the door and nobody's
And there's
there.
nobody there.
I
Yeah.
I love this one as well. I think Sasha, who plays Alison, just looks so gorgeous in this scene. Like
Oh,
she was just eating it up. She looks so good.
yes.
Um, I don't know, because I always, how did you think with like when you think back to the first secret, which is one of my favorite episodes? I just love that one so much because I love seeing how the girls were before Allison died. But in that one, you kind of get to see a bit more of their individual friendships. And it kind of felt like Allison and Aria had a really close relationship, which
Yeah.
you wouldn't really like think. It kind of seemed like she only really had a closer relationship with Emily. Um, but I think actually Aria and Allison seem to be a lot similar in certain ways, like obviously with like with the whole earring thing and the office, like Byron's office and things like that. And when we see them like running off and ditching Mona, which is obviously when she sees Meredith and Byron, that's kind of what that scene becomes about. It's her realizing that her dad's having an affair.
Yeah.
But also you do have that she really kind of played into that bully side with Allison a lot more than it seemed like, you know, like Emily did
Mm-hmm.
or Hannah did. um so I don't know, I always found their friendship to be really interesting. So, and I think that's like kind of in the scene as well, you see that where she's like, you know, I picked you, and she seems to like help her more in a way, whereas like with Hannah's, she kind of like taunts her a little bit more
Mm-hmm.
in her one. And it always seemed like she never really liked Hannah. And so like I don't know if there's like an like the order, if that would mean anything, because I
Yeah.
think I'm more like Emily was her favorite, then Aria, and then maybe like Spencer, then Hannah, but then her and
Mm-hmm.
Spencer always kind of like butted heads.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they definitely clash a lot.
Yeah. So I don't know what kind of order, yeah, Hannah, Emily, Spencer, then Aria, what that would kind of be.
Yeah. I
That's
also
an
just
interesting
think
one.
too, like those scenes are like the most dangerous scenes that have happened to each one of them at this point, except for Aria last in the Halloween box.
Oh my
That
gosh.
I swear she should have seen Allison then
Crazy.
because
Yeah.
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
Allison
most
should have broken
traumatic.
her out of that
Yeah,
box.
like the girls whenever they're in the face of fear and trauma is when they see her and she kind of like is their guiding light.
Yeah.
So I think it just made whatever the trajectory of the episodes and the storyline was, I think it just makes sense to whoever was going through something first. So I don't think it has like maybe a meaning to the order, but I definitely think it has a meaning to the progression of the story, like to the girls.
Yes.
Like this means
Yeah.
something to them. Kate adds, Michelle, do you believe any of these sightings to be actually real?
I don't.
Okay.
I believe kind of like what you were saying, like when we're in this time of fear and we're going through something scary personally, then the spirit guide of Allison appears.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And you know, but how do we explain the doll?
Right. Like you can't discount that. Also with Hannah, the pill bottle was moved
Right.
or something like that, right?
Right.
So like yeah, there are those weird, creepy what if scenarios that the writers put in that you're like, wait, could this be real?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I
it's kind of
love
tricky
it.
too, because like you also have other maybe explanations, like, well, maybe because Meredith was rooting around, maybe she left it there and she didn't know to
Right.
open it, or
Mm-hmm.
because then also the pages are still there.
Right.
So it kind of seems like maybe Allison took them, but then they are still there. And
True.
then
Yes.
with Hannah's one, we also know that Lucas came in. So then did he nudge something, or was it the doctors? Or it really is just like a complete 50-50. Is it
Yep.
real? Is it not? You
Mm-hmm.
can really
Yeah.
argue either way, which makes it
Especially
fun.
with this episode, I thought with the doll on the thought of Meredith was, you know, looking around her room. From behind, Meredith has this gorgeous blonde long hair, just like Allie.
That's
And
Yes.
so
so
if
true.
Aria like woke up for a second, it was in kind of this lucid dreaming state, could maybe picture Allison putting the doll there, but it was actually Meredith.
Yeah, I think they did a really good
Yeah.
job of putting that juxtaposition of the
Yeah.
two
Mm-hmm.
ladies, and
Yeah.
making it be like it could be either one.
Yeah.
So I thought that was really smart on the writer's end. But Aria wakes, the doll is there, as we said. She realizes she can't get out of her bedroom. She then has this revelation thanks to Allie telling her, hey, maybe you shouldn't drink that tea that Meredith's been giving you.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
And Arya's panicked now. And so she breaks a mirror of hers and she's going to hold it in her hand, I guess, waiting for Meredith to come home and make her move. But then I guess she passes out again
I know.
because Meredith goes in her room and she obviously
So
hides
funny.
it. Yeah, like Arya, I feel like if you didn't drink the tea, obviously it's still in your system, right? But she
Like, girl,
really
get it together.
out
Right.
cold. Yeah,
Right.
out cold. So
Yeah.
Meredith was able to get a jump on her. Arya tries to escape out of the bedroom, and then eventually Meredith, I don't even know what she does, but she takes something and hits her over the head with it.
So funny.
What?
Like, I find it so funny in these, like, in Pretty Little Liars, because it's the same in the season 2 finale when Mona hits Spencer. Like,
Yes.
these scenes are so funny where they like knock them out cold. It's like, how could you even do
Yes.
that to
I know.
somebody?
And right away too. It's not even like they did a one attempt. It's one attempt and done. The
Yeah.
girl is knocked out, and you don't even see what they're using to hit this person
No,
with.
it's just like it's some she's just picked up something and somehow everything has gone in her
That's
favor
it.
and it has
Yeah.
worked.
Exactly. It right. So Arya is passed out. The girls did visit her in the morning briefly with giving her the magazines and everything. But over the course of the day, they have not heard from her at all. Her mom hasn't heard from her. Nobody's heard from her because Meredith has her phone.
Yeah.
So they feel like it's suspicious. They end up seeing Meredith at the pharmacy and overhearing. This is small town for you. Like overhearing
Yeah.
what she's going to pick up just from being outside. But
It's
she's
so
trying.
funny. As if
Right,
they're
that
like
would never
yelling
happen.
her
I
she's
know.
yelling her prescriptions so that everyone can hear
Hello, HIPAA, that would never happen. But
it.
the girls do overhear. She's trying to renew a prescription she only just renewed like a couple of weeks ago, clonazepam. And the girls immediately find this suspicious. They look up that this is apparently a sleeping aid. And when she can't pick this up, she just like grabs a ton of sleeping pills. So they're like, this is not right. We got to get back
And
to
Hannah's
Aria.
like, she's trying to knock out a cow. Why she
Yeah.
got so many like
Something is
sleeping
not
pills?
right. Yeah, so they head to the Montgomerys. Meredith they don't even open the door. They just walk in, and then Meredith is there, scares them, and then says, "Oh, Aria's down in the basement." They proceed to go down the basement. And also, mind you, it's a storm. So of course it's a storm where the lights are just not really working in their favor. So the lights are just turned off, and they go down to the basement per Meredith's request, and of course she locks them in. And they find Aria there passed out, and she's not really waking up. It didn't look good for
It was
Aria.
scary.
It was scary. She was really out of it. But then I feel this whole entire thing is so anticlimactic because Byron ends up coming home because Meredith had tipped him off that Aria knows something about the blackmail. So then and Lauren, please confirm. I'm trying to put the pieces together of like, okay, so what's actually the scenario? Did Meredith take these pages from Aria, not Byron, and the Byron taking them from her boot was a red herring, and that he just kind of told this story of like, oh yeah, you used to keep it in your boot. But then Meredith tells Byron when he gets home, she knows everything about the blackmail. He would have already known that being if he had the pages. So I'm just trying to like put the pieces together of like,
right.
wait. So what did she actually do? So then Byron gets home. He goes downstairs. The girls are frightened. They think Byron could potentially be involved in the situation. And he's like waving the white flag, like, I'm good. No harm here. And the girls head back upstairs. And I guess during this time, Meredith just fled. She just left.
And that's it.
And she's gone.
Yeah.
To me, it was like, at least in like, I'm not going to spoil anything, but like in Misery, you're like, okay, this is like a really jam-packed pump story. You're like, you can't wait to see what's going to happen. Is he going to get out? This was so bleh.
Yeah, I feel like the focus was so much more on the Spencer Toby side of the episode that it feels like this one almost got like laid to the wayside. Like there's so much about it. Like even when they see her at the pharmacy, it's bright daylight. And then by the time they like come to see Aria, like Meredith has obviously already gone back to the house, has found her there, and has got the glass and everything. And then they come in.
That doesn't make it right. That doesn't make any sense.
And and she's put her in the basement by the time they get there. So what were they doing? Like
absolutely
they thought, oh, Meredith could be drugging Aria. Actually, should we just pop like to the brew first? Should we just go and get like Lucky Leon cupcakes? We'll just chill. I'm sure she's fine. We'll show up like 3 hours later to see if she's okay when we haven't heard from her all day.
You're so right. I didn't even think about it that
so
way.
Funny.
And that's so accurate. They didn't go right away, but then Meredith had all this time to drag Aria's body and down to this downstairs. And
like, did she just chuck her down the stairs into the basement?
God, I hope
oh my
not.
gosh. Like she pulled her from her room down the stairs to then put her down more stairs into the basement. Like, why is she trying so hard? Why didn't she just lock the door again?
I mean, she's a petite woman, but Meredith is also a very, sort of petite woman. So I feel like
I don't know, just
carrying 100 pounds over her shoulder down
so
the stairs.
Funny. Like I think in Pretty Little Liars, but also just like in other shows and stuff as well, when you actually picture what is happening between the cuts, you're like, this would be so ridiculous if you actually watched this entire scenario play out. Because they just cut it. You're like, yeah, I guess that makes sense. She could have dragged her body down 2 flights of stairs and just left her at the bottom. Sure, why not? Like, honestly.
So frustrating. It's so frustrating.
Yeah.
But Byron ends up telling Aria what his version of what happened. This we've heard the versions, but this is actually coming from Byron's mouth. And he says that he did pay her to stay quiet, and he knew it would look bad if the cops knew he was with her that night. And the longer Allie was missing, the harder it was for him to tell the truth. And so he just didn't say anything. But what's so weird about this flashback that he's explaining to Aria is we see the one scene we bring Tori in for half a second to bring her on the phone so she can just be there on the porch. And Byron almost smirking at the fact that Melissa is there. When I tell you, I tried to do a deep dive on Reddit nobody can figure out what this means, and I just think it's so funny because
Well,
what
obviously
is
this
this
has to
about?
come back.
Right.
Well, you guys would know, but
Well,
to me, I'm like, this comes back that she was there. Like now it's like we're passing the baton. Like, okay,
right. Yes.
Byron wasn't the last person to see Allie the night she got murdered.
Right.
It's now Melissa or
Yes.
yeah.
Our
Yeah.
listener Mike says, Michelle, do you think that Melissa's is the next POV we're gonna get when it comes to Allison's murder?
I mean, yes, but now I'm thinking no, because if you guys,
Well,
you
no,
know,
that's not true. I mean, obviously
okay,
Melissa has way more involved in this than
sure.
we know yet, but
Yeah.
it's just funny that Byron sees, I don't know, it's just the way he portrayed seeing her. It was almost like he was smiling, like knowing Melissa was going to be up to no good or something. It
It's
just
so
is weird.
funny.
Yeah.
It really, I feel like it's sort of like they said to everyone on the show, play your character really suspicious
Yeah.
in case we want to turn them into a villain at
Yes.
some point.
Later on.
Because you can go back and there's so many scenes where you're like, that was really weird. Like Jason, they make him so scary. And then
Yes.
Right.
I don't even know how long it's been since we've seen him, like the Halloween train.
Yeah.
It's just like weird things like that where people are really suspicious, like and even some of the actors and actresses have said like, oh, I kind of just in case I played it like this, and it's like, well, no, because now I'm like, why is Aria always looking in mirrors, and then like, why are you doing all this weird shifty stuff, like just for fun, just because you want to play it like that?
I know.
Oh my gosh,
It screws with your mind, but also now I don't even
Yeah.
know if Byron's off the hook because he says, you know what, I'm going to go down to the police station and I'm going to tell them everything. And then Aria's like, I believe you, and burns the pages. And I'm like, Aria, what are you doing? Like, I get
What
it,
are
it's
you
your
doing?
dad. But also, I'm like, does that mean Byron's like, oh, I don't have to go down to the station because my daughter, like, to me, it was unclear if he was actually going to still go down to the station or if he's like, no, my daughter believes me, I don't have to go.
Yeah, I think that the latter. He was like, oh, my daughter believes me. I'm not going to go.
So it's like, Byron, you're still maybe guilty, kind of, maybe.
Honestly.
A little bit, but now
at this
I don't know.
point, do you have a prime suspect for who
The murder
killed Allison?
I don't. No. Yeah.
I feel like that would be really hard to say at any point in this show. Like,
Yeah, I
they
feel
bring in
like
so many suspicious
I
people.
know.
Yeah.
Also, I think, well, kind of, yeah, like I was saying about from season 2 to season 3. In season 3, I don't know, it's a weird one because there's a lot of big things that happen. Like, obviously, a body is taken at the beginning, and then it's, oh my gosh, on the Halloween train. Like, the fight with Toby and Noel, like, oh, good Lord. And the body, like, sliding out. But even though those big things happen, it does feel like the story has shifted.
Yeah.
Maybe more towards like A and A's companions and Mona and less about who killed Allison.
Yeah. Agreed.
Whereas season 1 is very much like, you had Ian, who was this proper like big suspect, and they really followed that through like for a big arc of season 1. And then it feels like season 3 is more like, oh, maybe this person killed Alice. Oh, no, they didn't. That's fine. There's no like proper, like, it was like Ian for sure. It's got to be Ian. And then it was like, wait, no, it's not Ian. And then it's like, Melissa, like, she was there that night. It's got to be her. Or Toby, it's got to be him. Like, the blood was on the sweater. And then,
Yes.
Right.
But season 3 is really like, takes a bit of a departure from
it's like we're like
Allison.
working on exposing the A team.
Yes.
And that's what it feels like this
Which,
season right now.
Like, to the audience, obviously still very intriguing.
Yes, it is.
Yes. Yeah.
And then it's almost like a bonus if you do get stuff about Allison.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At this point. And then obviously later in the show, there'll be more. And it'll kind of reverse a little bit. And there'll be more things that come up that you'll be like, oh, okay. Now we're focusing more on that. But the A stuff obviously is the most exciting part.
Yeah, I think.
We're
anyway,
gonna talk about.
I don't know if Hannah's
moment.
I don't know if she said it yet in the show, but there's this point where she's like, it's always about the anus of things, like, and that's like it always comes down to who is A, who's working with A, what's the deal here. I feel like it's pretty early in season 3, to be fair, so maybe not yet, but do you kind of have any inkling of what is going on? Like, do you think it's just kind of who we've seen, like with Mona and Toby, or is it like who is pulling the
Yeah.
strings, or is it just too early to tell?
Yeah, for me it's too early because I'm so fixated now who Mona's talking to.
Yes.
Who is the puppet master here? I mean, it feels like Mona's in charge. And then we have, okay, so Toby's been exposed. And then
Mhm.
I thought Lucas was involved a little bit, and I'm still unsure about Lucas, but it goes back to everybody seems a little guilty. Everybody is
Exactly.
shady. So
Everybody
I don't
does.
know. I don't know who to trust. But yeah, I'm not I'm very I guess I'm patiently awaiting the next reveal of who's on this team.
Yeah.
And I don't know when that comes because I feel like we were just given a huge reveal. So,
Yeah.
The
yeah.
Toby one,
Ah, so good.
I think that might be, it's hard to say, but I think it's at least in my top three, if not the most shocking thing I'd ever seen.
Me too. I
I mean,
agree.
I'm so in denial. My theories are that he's a twin or it's supernatural and he's under a spell.
Yeah.
Like that's the
Yeah.
only I just can't believe that or Toby's doing this for the greater good.
Mm.
Well, that's what you hope it is,
That's what you
right?
hope. I'm in denial. I'm in
Yeah, it
denial.
is
So,
it's so many theories where you're like,
Right.
surely it just needs to be anything, but he's
but
just pure evil for no reason.
exactly.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
can't.
Like we are all
I know.
Spencer at the end of the episode. Like
Oh,
there needs to be another way. There needs to be an
Yeah,
explanation. Please
yeah.
give me the explanation.
Yeah.
but the
Um,
shock of it was
oh,
so
so
good.
good.
Yeah.
So
Um,
good.
and I don't know if you talked about this in the episode, but they filmed different endings for that. So they had Paige and they also had Caleb.
Yeah. None of them would have been
So
as good. I mean, obviously
yeah.
To us Caleb would have felt just the same
Oh,
as
good Lord.
Toby.
I don't know if I would have been able to recover from that. I love that man. Like
Oh,
that would
me
have
too.
really broken me.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
know. But
We
Paige
love
is like,
Caleb.
you could kind of see
You
it
could
if
see
it was
it.
Paige.
I could see Paige.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Paige would have been like really anticlimactic, I think. Like
Yeah.
Yeah.
at this point in the show, how are we feeling about Paige?
Yeah.
We feel she is good in doses. We
Mm,
like the little bits we get with her. Obviously, they're in a relationship, so there will be more of Paige. But I mean, right now she's okay. Obviously,
She's
this is
okay.
coming from someone. Obviously, as I said before, like I watched the show in real time. I watched week to
mm.
week, and said, "Oh my god, I cannot stand Paige." But this time around, it's been many, many, many years. I am much older and wiser, hopefully, and I'm like, I'm giving her the benefit of the doubt. I feel she's just a very intense person, and there's no doubt in my mind that she loves Emily and will do whatever she can for Emily. So there's
You know,
that.
I feel like I had a similar arc where I was the same, like couldn't stand Paige, and that's kind of a lot of the universal opinion
Yes, it
about
is.
Paige, which is so like interesting. And I feel like I when I have rewatched it, and like especially this time when I rewatched it, I was like, do you know what? Well, aside from when she tried to drown her, because that was a bit crazy.
That's the only argument that anyone has against her. That's
Like,
the
that was a
main
little bit crazy.
argument.
Um, but I think even like when Maya comes back, she's like, "You dated someone that tried to drown you,"
Yeah.
and everyone's like, "Yeah." And I think as well, a lot of the Paige hate just comes from how much everyone loved Maya, and
Yeah.
I'm in that boat. Like, I loved her so much, and I thought her and Emily were just everything.
Mm.
So it's hard to
Mhm.
go from that to Paige because Paige isn't, she's just not the same kind of character that Maya was. And Paige doesn't exist in the book. So she's like purely the
Yeah.
work of like the
Their
TV.
minds. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's so funny because you also have that with Caleb. Like Caleb doesn't exist in the books,
Yeah.
which is so crazy because I'm like, he's fabulous. Like, how could you not
Yeah.
love him?
Yeah.
So you have that with, and it just went so polar opposite. They created Caleb and Paige, and one is like a huge fan favorite, and one is hated by everybody. But I think
Yeah.
I have like a newfound appreciation this time. You kind of look at it through a bit of a different lens. She's kind of like the Vanessa from like Gossip
Yeah.
Girl, where
Yes.
everyone hated her. And I also did the first time I watched it. And then I watched it again and I was like, you know what? There's stuff to like here.
I
There's
absolutely agree.
It's
Yeah.
very nuanced. I think you get
Yes.
that as you watch shows. It's funny because you watch them when you're like a teenager and you kind of relate to the more trivial or like, kind of those things that they're going through. And then as you get older and you have more life experience and you're an adult, you relate to completely different things from the show. So
Yeah.
I feel like when I watch them now, like at the time when you're a teenager, you also kind of see them as teenagers, like, but you're kind of like, oh, why are they doing that? Like, how could they do this? Like, and then when you're older, you're like, they're teenagers.
Right.
Right.
Of course they're acting like this. Like, it's no wonder. I think because the cast are older, aside from like Sasha, it's hard to remember sometimes that they're like, was this season 3 like 17?
Yeah.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
you can't
Right.
be holding them to the standards of like these moral high grounds and everything, because that's not how being a teenager works. And I think it
Absolutely.
is fun to have characters like Paige that are a bit more of a gray area. There's not, everything to love about them. There's things, they make mistakes and they do things where you're like, oh, I wouldn't have done that. That was a bit weird, but that's also life at the same time. So I
Mhm.
think sometimes people don't like to see that reflected like back onto them. And I think that's like a big thing with Paige and Vanessa.
Yeah.
Um, and then it's funny to see how the public's perception then goes. And I think more in like the later seasons, you'll kind of see it that the public's perception and who they like and what they want really starts to seep in
Yeah.
more,
It drives
which I
the
think can
show.
be
Yeah.
which I think can be a shame. It kind of stops them from making like the big choices or going with certain storylines because they're just like scared of the fan backlash, which is so
Wow.
interesting. You're like, this is your show, you're running it, we're not, but they act like we are.
Yeah. Like take ownership.
Yeah.
Yeah. Unfortunately, that as the show goes on, there is way more things that I feel the fandoms didn't really appreciate. But then
Mm-hmm.
again, they were asking for it at the same time. So it's kind of like, well, which
Yes.
one do you want? And maybe you
Yeah.
shouldn't listen to the fans. Just go and create what you want to create. I feel like obviously the longer a show is on and the longer the seasons are, the more they can do with it. Like these shows these days, they're like 10 jam-packed episodes. Nobody's
Mm-hmm.
saying anything about it week to week. There's no influence by the audience, maybe for the next season. But
Yeah.
during this time, they were so influenced by forums and Reddit and all of that that unfortunately it taints the show and it makes it go in a direction it might have not have originally started.
Yeah, I think the
So,
exact same thing. It almost feels like sometimes it's like, okay, do we want to go with what's a better story or do we want to go with what is going to get a bigger reaction from like the fans, or what they want, or we don't want the outrage of this and we want to make sure that they're happy so they keep watching and everything. But sometimes it's like there's so many paths where you're like, oh, if you'd taken this path instead, yes, maybe these people wouldn't have been happy with it, but that would have made so much more sense.
right.
That would have been
Yeah.
so
And
much
better
better.
television too.
100%, yeah. And like you said, because it is, yeah, this like jam packed, they film them all at once, release them all at once. As the show is going on, you have like Toby, like he was supposed to die.
Yeah.
As you'll like have, read from the books, like he dies in the second book, I think it is. So
Yeah, something like
he
that.
was supposed to die in the show as well. And then people really liked his character and the chemistry that he had with Troyan and everything. So they decided to keep him. So like sometimes it can work in their favor, but also it is funny that you have, because they would release them and then they would be able to see the feedback and they'd be able to see what everyone was thinking before they then went back to write the second half of the season. So there are some times like that where you're like, this took such a different turn.
Mm.
And you're like, I wonder at the time when this was airing what Twitter was saying and what
Yeah.
was going on that then molded this and shaped it into something different. I feel like now there's a lot more of just, no, this is our story, we're going to tell it, this is it, do what you will with it. Whereas back then it was a lot more, I don't know, it was a very parasocial relationship. I think especially with Pretty Little Liars more than any kind of other show, because it was on that like real boom of Twitter and Instagram and everything, that Marlene would tweet, like they would, all the actors would tweet live as the shows were airing, and the writers would tweet, and they would reply to fans, and fans would ask them questions, and they'd be like, oh, we want to see this, and they would give teasers and, you know, all this stuff, be like, what did you think about this, and do you like this, or who do you like, and who do you like with who. And so there was such a like deep parasocial relationship there, where I think fans really felt like, in a way, like they listen to us, like these are like, we have a like rapport going here, and they really like played into that for the hype of the show. And you know, it was the most tweeted about show, broke like so many records against, you know, like The Walking Dead and Breaking Bad and things like that. So yeah, it's really just such a crazy like lightning in a bottle kind of thing that happened with this show, that I don't think happened before it or really happened after it.
Right.
Yeah.
And when you know who was popular and what was this, and you can see the bias of the writers as well and who they liked. And yeah, it's really like, as the show goes on, you're really like, wow, I wouldn't have done that, especially looking in like today's lens.
Mm-hmm.
But you're like, that was popular at the time, so that makes sense. But I kind of wish you'd just gone against them on this one and done something else.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yep. So looking forward to that, Michelle.